Folks, this is Keith, and you're watching Less Magic, More Gathering. Today, we are back with our Random Card Deck Tech series. This is Volume 8. Our featured card was Madcap Experiment, which you can see here. Before I get into the actual deck tech here, I want to address this. Someone mentioned that our videos weren't really clean, they weren't put together well, and I completely agree. Some of our videos are an absolute mess. So I'm going to do my best to clean things up, make them easier to watch, easier to understand, and hopefully it'll make everything better for you as our viewers. At least 102 of you have taken the time to subscribe to our channel, so we want to put out the best content we can. That being said, we're going to pretty much dive right into this deck. I had a request from someone on YouTube that was watching one of our other videos to make this an Is It deck, being red, blue, and I wanted to do that for him, but I really felt like it needed the splash of black that I put in here. We splashed in black for the Forerunner of the Coalition and for the Noxious Gearhulk. We'll see here in a little while why I thought those cards were so important. Those are the only two black cards in the deck, and if you really wanted to build this as a Is It deck, you could take those out, throw in a second copy of the Combustible Gearhulk, and 3 copies of the Protean Raider. I think would be a good replacement. So the way that I built it though is the red, blue, black. So let's start off here. Take a look at our creatures. Actually, let's not start with the creatures. Let's start with Madcap Experiment, so that everything else makes a little more sense. Madcap Experiment is a 4-drop sorcery. You reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit an artifact. It goes onto the battlefield. The rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then Madcap Experiment deals damage to you equal to the number of cards that you revealed. So we had to find a good balance of enough artifacts that we're not going to kill ourselves every time we use Madcap Experiment, but you also don't want to hit low value artifacts that you're not going to be using or that aren't worthwhile. So let's start out by taking a look here at the artifacts that are in the deck, and there's 7 total artifacts in the deck. We got 3 copies of the Vanquishers Banner. And you'll see once we get to the creatures how these artifacts are going to kind of help out this deck. Vanquishers Banner gives the creatures of the chosen type, you choose a type when it comes in, it gives those creatures +1/+1, and whenever you cast one of those, you draw a card. So it gives you some card advantage, and it also beefs up some of those creatures that are on the battlefield. In a similar manner, the Immortal Sun makes it so that all your creatures get +1/+1. All your spells cost 1 less. And at the beginning of your draw step, you draw an additional card. And if you get into a battle with someone that's playing a Planeswalker heavy deck, or even just one Planeswalker, it doesn't matter. It makes it so that players can't activate those Planeswalkers' abilities. So you're getting more card advantage, you're getting more power and toughness on your creatures, and it's making everything cheaper to cast. So you can see how those 2 cards would benefit, hitting them with the Madcap Experiment, as long as you don't kill yourself. So the other 2 artifacts is 1 copy of the Noxious Gearhulk and 1 copy of Combustible Gearhulk. The reason we did the Gearhulks was because we wanted to kind of pay homage to a deck that someone else had put together. They call it Madcap Gearhulks. It's got a bunch of copies of big Gearhulks, and that's the purpose of their deck. So to kind of pay homage to them, we threw in a couple copies that we thought would help us. So first one, Noxious Gearhulk. When it comes into play, you destroy a creature, and you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So if we're using our Madcap Experiment to hit Noxious Gearhulk, we're going to lose life because of Madcap Experiment, but we're going to gain some of that back because of the Noxious Gearhulk's ability. So as long as you don't die when Madcap Experiment resolves, you're going to get some life back. And you also get a 5/4 with Menace. And then the Combustible Gearhulk, when it enters the battlefield, your opponent chooses your option here. You can either draw 3 cards, or you can graveyard, mill 3 cards, and they take damage equal to the converted mana cost of the cards that go in your graveyard. So it can either be card advantage, or, it can be a burn spell directly to them. Now, if you're using Madcap Experiment to hit the Combustible Gearhulk, you're going to lose life too, but hopefully that helps balance things out. And then you've got a 6/6 first striker that can hopefully help you win the game there. On to the rest of our creatures here. We went pirates. Thought they worked well together. They take advantage of the Immortal Sun and Vanquishers Banner. And there's other abilities here that are going to help us get card draw and things like that can hopefully help us win the game. We went 2 copies of the Daring Saboteur. It's a 2-drop, 2/1. You can pay 3 and make it so it can't be blocked. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So more card advantage. That's kind of a big feature in this deck with those few cards that we've got so far that help us get through the deck to the stuff we need. Went with the Direfleet Daredevil, 2 copies. Direfleet Daredevil is good, and that may be a card that you sideboard out or put in your sideboard so that you can sideboard in against certain decks. I liked it in the way it played out. Everybody's using, timeout, back up. Most people are using some kind of instant and sorcery spells that the Direfleet Daredevil can take advantage of. Whether it's a removal spell or a pump spell to make your creatures better, there's usually some way that the Direfleet Daredevil can take advantage of those cards in the graveyard. We went with 2 copies of the Fanatical Firebrand as a 1-drop. I had this at 3 before, but I got to looking, and I really felt like our other 1-drop, the Siren Storm Tamer, was going to be a better call. Fanatical Firebrand's fine. He comes in 1-drop, 1/1 with haste, and you can tap him and sacrifice him to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. So in the early game, it's an easy way to kind of hold off your opponent when they've got little creatures out there, or just kill something. It comes out, you tap it, sacrifice it, and just kill a 1-power creature. Or late game, if you've got them down to the point where you can use the Firebrand to just end the game, then that's an option too. I've had more than one game where I've played to the end and had an opponent with 1 life that I just couldn't get rid of. So having a 1-drop red that could take care of that for me would have been nice. Next, we're on to our second black spell. Forerunner of the Coalition is a 2/2 pirate. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for another pirate card, reveal it, shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. That part's not really that important because the pirates in this deck aren't meant to really finish the game until you get the Madcap Experiment played and hit one of these other big artifacts. But here's the part that really helps us is that whenever another pirate enters the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. And we've got a lot of low-cost pirates that we can play after the Forerunner of the Coalition, especially if we get the Immortal Sun, Vanquishers Banner, either one out there. We can really start playing a lot of those, and that's really going to burn into their life quite a bit. So that's why we put that in there. And the next card here, Lightning Rig Crew, is kind of along the same concept. Tap it, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever you cast a pirate spell, you untap it. So if you manage to get Lightning Rig Crew and Forerunner of the Coalition on the battlefield, then you can tap Lightning Rig Crew, do 1 damage, play a pirate spell, that'll do 1 more, untap Lightning Rig Crew, tap it and do another damage. So even if you've only got 1 pirate to play, that's 3 extra damage that turn. And then if you've got your Vanquishers Banner, you get to draw a card every time. So you can see how those would kind of chain react with one another and can really take down an opponent a lot each turn. We already went over the Noxious Gearhulk, so we'll skip down to the Sailor of Amines. This is another one. I had 3 copies of the Sailor of Amines and 3 copies of the Wily Goblin, but I just really feel like the Sailor of Amines is a better option. It costs 1 more to play, but it's a 1/4 instead of a 1/1, and they both do the same thing. When they enter the battlefield, they create a treasure token. So you can kind of ramp into some of this bigger stuff if you need to, or you can get, if you're missing land drops, you can get to some of those bigger spells, Madcap Experiment, Mortal Sun, Vanquishers Banner, some of those. You can get to those faster based on Sailor of Amines and Wily Goblin coming in and creating a few treasure tokens for you. So, but I did go with 4 of him and only 2 of the Wily Goblin. Like I said, they have the same ability, but one of them's a 1/1, one of them's a 1/4. So you can probably understand why I went with more copies of the 1/4 than I did the 1/1. And last but not least, went with 3 copies of Siren Storm Tamer. The big point of this deck is kind of not to defeat your opponent by attacking with your pirates, or attacking at all, really. The point of this deck is to defeat your opponent with the Forerunner, the Lightning Rig Crew, your Combustible Gearhulk, and your Noxious Gearhulk's abilities triggering, things like that. So Siren Storm Tamer is going to be a creature that you can get out there early or late, and it's going to protect you and your other permanents from your opponent's spells. It's cheap, it's an almost instantly available ability. Any spell that targets you or a creature you control, you can counter those by paying 1 and sacrificing your 1/1 flyer. You will be able to get in sometimes with your 1/1 flyer and do some damage that way, which is great. You can attack with that and still use the ability because it doesn't require a tap to use the ability. So that ability is always available as long as you have that 1 blue mana. And I also, as a way to kind of protect ourselves and our important spells that are going to help us win the game, went with 4 copies of Lookout's Dispersal. It's essentially a counterspell, because most of the time, 95% of games, you're going to get a pirate out early. So then you've got a 2-cost counter, unless its controller pays 4. I said it's a counterspell, but it's not really. It's a they still have the ability to pay that 4 and get the spell out that they're wanting to use, but depending on what you're countering, it may as well be just as good as a counterspell, because paying 4 is expensive. So that is, did I miss anything? No. Our land base here went with 2 Drowned Catacomb, 2 Highland Lake, 7 islands, 9 mountains, 2 Spire Bluff Canal, and 2 swamps. Not a lot of black mana sources in there, I'm sure you noticed, but we have the 4 black mana sources from lands, and then we can also use the treasure abilities from the Sailor Amines and the Wily Goblin to get out some of these creatures that use the black mana. There's only, like I said, 4 spells in the deck. The 3 Forerunner of the Coalition and 1 Noxious Gearhulk that use black mana. So there wasn't a whole lot of need for putting a lot of that in there. So I wanted to kind of show you, if you look here, I know it's not showing my pointer on the screen, but off to the right hand side of the screen here, you've got the option to go on here and you can buy these on TCG Player or Card Kingdom, and you can buy them on MTGO through Card Hoarder, and that option is right on the tapped out deck screen that I will have a link for in the description. And I wanted to kind of scroll through and show you what tapped out was all about. I don't know if any of you use it But if you go all the way to the bottom here, it gives you your deck stats, also on the right-hand side. It shows you the legality of the deck. It shows you how many cards are in the deck, your average converted mana cost, any tokens that you might need. And then if it's got views, I just put this on here so it doesn't have any views yet, but if it does, it'll show you views there. And as you go up, you can add comments. Other people can come in and add comments to your decks. If you're looking for help, you can mark your decks as, such, so that you can get suggestions on those through the community here. And then on the right hand side here, you'll notice you've got your mana curve, you've got your deck build, you've got your mana availability and costs. And then there's all kinds of abilities over here on the left hand side where you can ask for suggestions, you can play test your deck. If you hit that deck cycle button there on the left hand side, it'll put your deck on the front page of Tapped Out so that people can see it, look at it, give you suggestions if you're looking for them. You can also export it. You can make it into an image to put it on social media, things like that. So I don't know if you guys have used Tapped Out, but this is the site that I use anytime I'm building a deck. So that is Madcap Pirates for Random Card Deck Tech Volume number 8. Now, I usually record myself selecting our new random card on my phone. Since I'm doing things a little differently, you guys are just going to have to trust me. So I've got my phone out, I am selecting a new random card, and apparently I need to reset my filters, because that was an uncommon. So, standard, common card, we're going to go random card. We got Harvest Season from Amines. 3-drop. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So my brain started working, and I've already got a few ideas of how we can use this Harvest Season. That should be a fun deck. That's really good ramp, by the way. Let's see here. I should be able to switch to a new window over here. Let's bring up Harvest Season so we can get some more info on it for you. There you go. Amines. And it looks like, let's see, view. Yep, so it was only printed in Amines. So that's our card for next week. I will Monday get a brainstorming video together, kind of give you guys an idea of where my head's at with this deck, and we'll go from there. Don't forget to look at the link below if you want to check out this deck on Tapped Out, the Madcap Pirates deck. I will have that link down there. You can go in. If you've got suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below or on Tapped Out, either one. I appreciate you watching. I look forward to next week because I think that Harvest Season is going to be a fun deck. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and if you've got any comments or suggestions for the channel, the video, anything, leave them down below. Thanks a lot, and we will see you next time. Deuces!